Good evening and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting, January 4th, 2010, and Happy New Year to all. Tonight we do have two public hearings scheduled. One's being 295 Varnum Ave, which is Lowell General Hospital, and the other one's being a zoning amendment on Willard Street. Due to the amount of people here this evening, could I just ask who's here for the Lowell General project first by a show of hands? And could I ask who's here for the Willard Street by a show of hands? Would the board have any objection if I go forward on the Willard Street project first? No. Okay. Therefore, we'll go forward on the 54, 66, and number 80 Willard Street. This is a zoning amendment. This comes before the planning board for a public hearing, and our responsibility tonight is we're a recommending body only. So what we do is, after the public hearing tonight, we will make a recommendation to the city council. And so there'll be another future public hearing before the city council, and at that point in time, their vote will be binding on the zoning change. By our bylaws, we are just a recommending body only. So in accordance to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to the ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts. With respect to Appendix A, therefore entitled Zoning, the amendment would extend the traditional mixed-use zoning district to include the parcels of land located at 54, 60, and number 80 Willard Street. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I just want to, for the record, state I'll be recusing myself from the deliberation and the recommendation on this matter.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Chairman, members of the board, for the record, James Flood, 549 West Lowell, Mass. I represent Mrs. Manham, property located at 1141 Bridge Street. Before we go any further, I would first like to request that the property located at 80 Willard Street be withdrawn from this petition. I spoke with Assistant City Solicitor David Fenn, and he recommended that that would be the way to proceed at this time. The request to be taken out, and if you people wish to recommend, then it would just pertain to the other two parcels. So, if you recall, back in June of 2009, I was before you on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. for an amendment to a previously approved site plan at 1141 Bridge Street. We would build a one-story commercial building approximately 354 square feet, and the parking was reduced from 20 to 18 spaces. Subsequent to that approval, the property at 54 Willard Street was foreclosed upon and was offered for sale. Mr. and Mrs. Ung spoke with the owner and entered into a purchase and sale agreement subject to an amendment to the zoning to extend the TMU zone from 1141 to include this piece. When I was before this board before the city council, the neighbor next door, Mr. Roy, stated he had some concerns. So before I did anything further, I contacted Mr. Roy to tell him what I intended to do. And I did that through his attorney, Mike Nazar, who's here tonight. Mr. Nazar called me back and told me that Mr. Roy had no problems with this, and as a matter of fact, he would like to join within the petition, and also he had spoken to his neighbor, Mr. Pappas, and he also wanted to join in the petition. So that's why it came through the way it is, and it was just recently that I heard from Mr. Pappas. It was just before Christmas that he said he did not want to be involved in it, and that's why I've asked for it to be withdrawn. The reason we wanted to extend it was when we came in with the amended plan, the parking was reduced from 22 to 18. This piece that we have under purchase and sale agreement is approximately 7,000 square feet, and we wanted to use it for parking, or in the future, if we needed to expand a little, we could use it. Right now, under the TSF zone, you can't use it for parking. So we thought it was an opportunity. If we could extend the zone, we could use that piece for parking. I think you're all familiar with Mr. Roy's property. It's very well maintained, but he has a non-conforming business in there also, so we figured that it might, all go along. So that was the purpose of my request. Now, I see there's a lot of people here. I was just recently advised of the concerns. I'd be willing to hear them, but I think that's why I'm here, because we'd like this additional area for parking if possible. So I'd ask for a positive recommendation.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak in favor of the zoning amendment?
I'm Michael Najar, on behalf of Roland and Janine Roy that own 66 Willard. And let me just say briefly that from their perspective, they have a non-conforming use going on right now with an insurance agency, a real estate agency, so that the change is not a huge concern one way or the other, because they kind of have options. I suppose if it were to be changed to multifamily, it would enable some expansion there. Essentially, that area, you've got the corner where there's a strip mall that's going to be going in. You've got the opposite side of the Pappas property, which is adjacent to the Roy property, which is the extension of Demula's, with 18-wheelers coming in and out all day long. And then just up the street from there, there's multifamily, there's condos on one side, there's apartments up there, then you get into Elmo's. Once you cross the Dracut line, it's all business. So that what there is right now on I call it the Demula's side of Willard Street, essentially, is you've got a little tiny pocket of residential zoning that is surrounded by business, both in terms of effectively, the Roy's is part business, part residential, and then you've got business on both sides. You've got them sandwiched between Demula's and, I don't know who the owners are. They're putting the strip mall in along the corner of Bridge and Willard, but that's what's going in there. So just seemed like it would make sense to just take the zoning and kind of finish off that block into what it effectively has become anyway.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the zoning amendment? Anyone else in favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition of the zoning amendment? Just let me make clear that since Attorney Flood did withdraw number 80, the board will allow him to withdraw number 80 that's in front of us, so we'll be acting on number 54 and number 66. Okay? Just state your name and address, please, Pam.
Good evening. My name is Jane Pappas. I live at 80 Willard Street in Lowell, Mass. And good evening, Chairman Lenahan, Vice Chairman Claremont, Mr. Lockhart, Mr. Frechette, and Mr. Gendron. My name is Jane Pappas. My husband and I, John, and I live at 80 Willard Street in Lowell. Our home was built by my father-in-law for our family home in 1954. I am here this evening to address the planning board in the matter to change the zoning that is before you this evening. We were told this past week that we were included in the change. I would like to make this perfectly clear. We never agreed to any change or to be included in any change in zoning. We don't understand what is going on here. On December 24th, Bob Roy, who is a New Hampshire resident, by the way, dropped a paper off at our home and said, "This is all set." Then we checked the Lowell Sun and found the notice that included us. On Thursday, the 24th of December at 1:30, John contacted Attorney Flood, who said he didn't think he could change this. On Monday, the 28th of December, my husband went to the DPD and talked to Aaron. He also said he didn't think it could be pulled. Okay. On Monday, December 28th, at 12:49, Attorney Najar called my home, our home, and he tried for about 12 to 15 minutes to convince me how great this would be for us in case we ever decided to sell our home for business. And maybe my children would want us to do this. Well, I explained to him. We had a family meeting, and my children and my adult grandchildren were very upset this could happen to us. During the conversation, he finally got to the point. He wanted to know if we would oppose this change. I explained we were not happy with any change and that they put our name on this without our permission. We intend to live here as long as we can, with our property zoned as residential. And when the day comes and we can't take care of ourselves, one of our children or grandchildren will live here as residential. This is our family home. We are not interested in selling our home for business or any other reason. On Wednesday, December 30th at 9:45, John went back to the DPD to see if they had changed it. Nothing was changed. Amazing. We would like the record to state that the Roy family, Roland and Janine, and part owners, the real estate and insurance business, Bob and Wendy Roy of Pelham, New Hampshire residents, included us in this change without our knowledge. We find it highly insulting that they could make this decision for us. We also would like to state the fact that we are full-time residents of the city of Lowell, and the Roys are only part-time residents of the city of Lowell. They spend their summers in Moulton Borough, New Hampshire, and winters in Deltona, Florida. We further state our quality of life as a senior citizen in our home have been compromised without our knowledge. We now and have never been interested in changing our residential status. We ask you that you further investigate the need for this zoning change in our neighborhood. None of the neighbors have been notified about this. I don't know why law, what has to be done, I don't have any idea. But I would think, just personally, the neighbors should have been notified. John and I will oppose the change in zoning, and we'd like a copy of this to be included in your records. Thank you, Jane Pappas.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Please, sir. State your name and address of record if you would.
Danny Gilday, 55 Willard Street in Lowell. Me and my wife have lived it. Thank you. Me and my wife are direct abutters to the land in question. It's right across the street. We've lived there 32 years. My mother and father lived in a house aside of it for 44 years. Prior to you people being on the board, as the gentleman was just stating about the apartments up the street. The apartments up the street and now the apartments are in question that the city of Lowell allowed these people to build on a dump. And now they got all kinds of problems up there. The neighborhood has gone from a nice residential neighborhood to what it is today. I've known the Roy family for a long time. I watched their property when they're in Florida. The brother is a personal friend of mine. I was with him last night. He wasn't even aware of this. I'm just disappointed that I've known him for a long time. It's just not to come across the street and let me know what was going on. I'm kind of disappointed. I watch this board meeting all the time. I know you people always do the right thing for the neighborhood. I know you're going to do the right thing at this. I want to be on record as being opposed, as well as my wife. The gentleman in question, I think this is the third time he's had problems. Had a problem up in New Hampshire with his residence property up there. Had a problem with Hannaford over on Henry Avenue in Lowell. These are all public records. So I don't trust him to do the right thing in this property. As the gentleman said, they were going to do the right thing. I'm disappointed. I'm totally against it. You know, it's a residential neighborhood. I grew up there, raised a family there, and I think it's kind of disgusting the way it come down. I'm a butter right across the street, and I see him every day of the week. You think he'd have the common decency to walk over, excuse me, and say, this is what I plan to do. I can agree to disagree, but I'm just disappointed. I found out about it Friday night, and I know you people are going to do the right thing, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
My name is Anne Marie Page. I sit on the board of Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, and I live at 26 Fremont Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. Like many people sitting in this room today, I am Lowell born, Lowell bred, and someday I'll be Lowell dead, and hopefully in the same house. This is a neighborhood where people raise their families. And as I recall, I want to make sure I get this right because there's a lot flying around this room. In June when we came here, somebody bought an old gift shop up on Bridge Street across from CVS. They tore it down, and we were told they were going to put a very nice strip mall, maybe 3 or 5 units, no food. And we supported it, even though it was short a couple of parking spots, because it was going to be on the idea of like a professional building, maybe a retail, but no food. We have a lot of food on Bridge Street. So we said, okay, fine. That would be very nice, and we supported it. And evidently, everything went through fine, and they tore down the building. They put up a sign. Many times the sign advertising to lease for this space that was going to be built was broken. The grass went over 3 feet high. The place became little pig pen and did not improve the quality of life of anybody in that neighborhood. I even called up the number that was on the sign. It was an unusual number. It looked like a Chelmsford number, but it was a telephone number in Massachusetts, and I called and I suggested if they wanted people to lease the property, they might want to cut the grass or neaten it up, make it look a little cleaner, at least fix the broken sign. It seems lately that somebody wants to change planning, zoning, or something. Then they sell it, then they leave town, and then the people that are left in that neighborhood get stuck with what's left. Make sure I'm reading it right. This is going to be, we want to change something on that empty lot that's been sitting there empty for several months on Bridge Street, so that maybe it'll work its way over into Willard. Well, there's plenty on Bridge Street. We have lots of retail. We like retail. It works well on Bridge Street, but it doesn't work well on Willard. Willard is a neighborhood where people live with their families, where they raise their families and their children play. And yes, there are a few apartments that probably went up or shouldn't have, and they did, but that's yesterday. This is today. This is not wanted by the neighborhood. It is not needed by the neighborhood. It will not improve the quality of life in that neighborhood. And we, as neighbors, depend on you gentlemen to make a decision that's going to improve or at least stabilize the quality of life in our neighborhood. We depend on you. And when everything is over and done today, we would very much appreciate to have a copy of the minutes also, so we'd have them. We thank you for your time, and we do realize that you do try to listen to the neighbors, because when you all go home, we're in that neighborhood. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? If anybody else want to speak in opposition? Would anybody like this, anybody in opposition who doesn't want to speak, just want to raise their hand in opposition to give the board a feeling of who's 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have a total of at least 16 hands up, just for the record, of 16 hands of people in the audience who have raised their hands in opposition to the zone change. Okay, thank you. Anybody else hearing no further people want to speak in opposition? This point in time, the public hearing is closed. I'll turn the matter over to any questions the planning board members may have.
Mr. Linehan, may I respond to some things though
No.
on behalf of
No. Now, if you come to the microphone, Mr. Najar, a minute. What? No, well, see, the public hearing is, we listen to one side, we listen to the other side, then it stops. I mean, the basic question before me is whether they were notified or not. That doesn't make a difference to me. People are here, we do the advertisement, we can respond to how they were notified. Once people show up in the meeting, notification is moot. We understand what their concerns are. They don't want it in the neighborhood. People who spoke. If you want to say something, go right ahead.
Let me just state, because I don't want people that, I mean, they all live around there. I don't want people to have the wrong impression of what the Roys, I heard like what the Roys are planning. How this unfolded was very simple. Mr. Flood's client was to make the application. The Roys felt, well, gee, as long as you're doing the engineering plans and all the work, you know, we'll go along. They're not planning to do anything. They've lived there for many, many years. The agency's been there many, many years. That's all, nobody's planning a single thing. If the Pappases wanted to change their mind or didn't understand at the outset, nobody had any problem with that. The Roys, as I said before, it doesn't truly affect the Roys. They've got a non-conforming use, and that's fine. But, I mean, it seems to be a rancor that was unwarranted because essentially it was a matter of, God, if we can get a freebie on engineering plans and legal, then fine, just include us and go along with it. And that was really all their role was. So I want the people to realize that. That's why there was no explanation. It was not
Well-
anything that, there's no
But wouldn't
big
it,
plans.
but wouldn't it, to get back to what you say, wouldn't it really affect the Roy's property?
Yeah,
Different than what you've told us so far this evening?
it would affect the Roy's property, but it's not like the Roys are planning to do anything. So essentially, what they did is they said, well, as long as you're going to do it, yeah, why don't you extend it and we'll get the free engineering and legal costs. They have no intention of changing anything that exists there.
But if the zoning was changed, they could change their type of use that's there now, correct?
Yeah, they would be able to, sure.
Right. They could put,
To some extent, yes.
they could put a bar room in there. They
They
could put a
could
salon in there. They could sell alcoholic beverages in there. They could put a business or professional office space, medical or dental clinic, correct? Under the zoning code?
I think those are probably true. I don't think they would ever do it, but I mean, yeah, they'd
But,
be
I
able to.
mean, if it's changed, if they moved or sold, then once it's in the zone, anybody else by right could come in and put that in there, correct?
We're not denying that. I'm just saying that all they did is said, well, as long as you're doing it and you want to do it, you know, we're not objecting, and if you want to throw us in, throw us in. There's no intention of doing any of that at this point. No, you're absolutely right. But this whole idea that they were plotting something, or, no, that's not the way it unfolded.
Okay.
That's
Right.
all.
Right, thank you.
All right.
Sure.
Bob Roy, the owner of the family-run business that's been there for 50 years. I'd like to, if the Pappases, who have been neighbors, and some of the other neighbors that are clients of ours presently, maybe in the past and hopefully in the future, I would like to publicly apologize to the Pappases if they believe that they were unaware of what was going on. It came before my dad, as many of the neighbors know. We are probably directly affected the most by the ongoing development, having been there for 50 years, and their parcel being my parents' parcel, and they are still the owners of the parcel, by the zoning changes that have occurred. Most recently, the extension of the TMU down to the left-hand side of their property that occurred, I guess, in the past 12 months or 2 years. My dad received a letter from Attorney Flood indicating his intention to proceed with a zoning change for the balance of the piece, having no objections to the last zoning change, and it was extended into the residential zone down the side of my dad's property. I conferred with my dad, I conferred with the Pappases. I believe to this minute that we were all under the impression that at some point when Attorney Flood got the legal title or possession of who was going to actually own that property next door, because there was a bankruptcy proceedings going on with the previous owner, and when he did acquire title, he proceeded to do the zoning change. And based on the fact that the zoning change came up the last one that was, I guess, unopposed because it went through, and I sat with my dad and the Pappases several times. Sorry to hear that, and I want to apologize.
I apologize now, that's a lie.
Well, we'll just keep the comments to the board if we could, okay? I mean,
Okay,
Right now, you never ever mention this, don't say that. Don't say something that isn't true, Bob. I won't handle that.
okay, we conferred many times, as we have over the years that they've been neighbors. We have been one of the longest our family has in the neighborhood. My father has
certainly paid his dues, taking care of the property, and there was no intention of any bar room. It was simply an extension of what was happening next door, and I can freely look at all you neighbors. There was going to be no change other than the fact we were being encircled, and if you look back of what's happening in the rear with the wall that was supposed to be a privacy wall and the changes that occurred, my dad is actually a buffer to all the neighbors who happen to be on the other side of the street from my dad's property. And I must say that they are clients, they have been friends of ours. I'm a little disappointed as well, my parents, who are 80 and 83, these people I consider to be neighbors and friends and clients. I'm sorry that they feel that way. We had no ill will or ill intentions of other than continuing the family business that's been there for 50 years. And I think we've been great caretakers and neighbors to all of the people here. And I can look at them straight in the face and say that. And I'm sorry if my parents, because they are the owners and I am speaking for them, did anything to offend you. That certainly was not their intention, other than to continue what's happening with the changes that are occurring in the neighborhood. That certainly was nothing meant to devalue theirs. My parents have probably the largest parcel, one of the highest assessed single-family properties in the street. And so there was no ill intention. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Pappas, in front of all these people and the board members, if there was something that you believe that I didn't express to you and John on many occasions.
I'm going to say it once more. I swear on my mother's grave. No lying. How about that one?
I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I'm not a liar.
Because I won't handle lying.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
It just-
I guess
I
that's,
just don't do that. I'm too
this-
ignorant for that.
I'll let you address her later, but,
thank you for your time.
all right. I know I closed the public hearing, but I did allow Attorney Najer and Mr. Pappas to speak. Anybody else want to speak before I turn over to the board's questions? Basically, what happens is, when there's a zone change, what we look at is what's allowed in that zone now, and what can be allowed in that zone if we change it.
Right.
So basically, as indicated, by changing that zone, different things could be allowed. Whether Mr. Roy would keep his business as is, so be it. Would he have a right to put other things in that zone? Absolutely. Would he do so? Maybe not. Time being, if he sold it, anything happened to him, he passed away, it's there by zone, they'd have a right to go in and put it in. It may come before us for a site plan review, decide on the size of the building. So when we look at the zone changes, what would be allowed under the zone now? What would be allowed at the zone in the future? Perfect example is when they came before us for the Dunkin' Donuts on Bridge Street. We looked at if we changed that zone there, some of the concerns was what we could put in there. The zone at that time, they wanted the zone changed because they wanted to put in the drive-through for the Dunkin' Donuts. At that time, the board voted against the zone change, and it never made its way to the council, it was withdrawn. But we have to look at, by changing the zone, what would be permitted by use. I know when people buy property, they buy it in a single-family residence, they buy it in a business residence, they have a right to do what their property says under the law. That's why certain people buy in certain zones, because they want to be able to live in a neighborhood situation, a business situation, a single-family residence, a multifamily residence, and that's why they buy that property. And that's why it's taxed accordingly, and that's why people live in those areas. So by looking at this, we're not saying this is going to be changed, but the zone is changed, they would be allowed to put these other businesses in that zone. So we, as planning board members, think that it may just be what Mr. Roy wants to do now, but it would give him these other rights as well. If he didn't change it, maybe not. But as we know, times past, people sell buildings, other people have the right to come forward. So we look at what is allowed under the present use and what would be allowed if we change it to the future use. Okay, sure, come to the microphone, if you would, ma'am, please, thank you.
My name's Pat Hunt. I am part of the Central Neighborhood Action Group as well. And I'm actually, I'd like to speak against the project because I have a couple of questions. I thought under the master plan, that area was single-family zoned. I know there's a lot of single-family, and they're still zoned single-family
Correct.
on that, okay. I guess another question I have is, that business, we were here in June for Mr. An, you know, for information about that business, and we were happy to, we thought it was a great idea. I guess I'm confused, because I thought that was all set, and they had enough parking, and the project was going forward.
That's the last we heard too, ma'am.
Well, okay, this is why we're confused. So I have to say, I have to support the neighbors, because it does sound like, it almost sounds like, well, if they change it, then now they can incorporate this other piece of land and possibly put 50 parking spots and make the other building a little bigger, and, which would be invasive on the quality of life of the people that have to live on that street, and the single-family homes that would be facing this piece of property. So, based on the fact that under the master plan, those are single-family homes and they're zoned for it. And I'm just really curious as to what's come up with this Mr. On's property here, where we've been waiting all these months for them to do construction work. Only, we kind of suspected something might be going on. But now that we know that there's, you know, that there are other things possibly being tied into this, I'd have to say that I agree with the neighbors. I'm really against it. And hopefully that they reconsider, you know, take it into consideration anyway.
I think what Mr. Flood said to begin with was, I believe in his narrative to start, he said that this piece of property came available, and therefore his client was gonna try to purchase that to change it to put parking there, I believe is what his intent is through his client.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Flood?
I
Correct.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Correct, and the project has gone out to bid. I would anticipate that they'd be starting construction shortly, but this opportunity came up. I thought the parking was tight. We did reduce it by 4. We thought this was an opportunity, and that's why I brought it in. I went to Mr. Roy only because he was next door, and that's what started this whole thing. So, I mean, the whole intention was just to get some additional parking, but the project will be constructed and will be complete, and it's gone out to bid now, so I would anticipate soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Okay. Anybody else before I turn it over to the board members? All right. At this point in time, any of the board members have any questions?
I have just a point of clarification.
Mr. Lockhart?
On the documentation that we've been given, there's a print here with 2 dwellings on it and an empty lot that are not numbered, and I'm just...
That's number 80.
Where?
That's Pappas's there.
All right.
That's Roy's. And that's the vacant lot behind that town crier.
All right, this is 80 then.
Yeah.
So which is 80?
The far right?
The far right. And the middle is,
The middle one is number 66, and number 54 to the far left is the vacant lot.
I think there's a dotted line, Rich, on
Yeah.
54.
So that'd be
all
54.
right, and so the last dwelling is
So-
not included on this.
So on the
just
plan
thought-
there,
all right.
you have the dwelling, you have the office, and the office, that's where, on the sign out there says Roy Associates, Roy Insurance, and then there's a garage in front of it. So that's Mr. Roy's property, the one in the middle.
Yeah.
And so number 54 would be the back of the property that was, the one that was brought down, was the town crier that they,
And redeveloped,
that they did for the redevelopment. That would be the vacant lot to the far left.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. That's all for right now, just so I can
Any other?
pass the
Okay.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Fischett, any questions?
if I may, and whenever we consider any kind of a recommendation to the city council on a zoning change, I really take a good look at the city's master plan. There was an extensive process that the city went through to rezone entire neighborhoods in the city of Lowell. And specifically under the neighborhood quality of life, the action step regarding this process was rezone areas in which present zoning promotes uses that are not compatible with existing neighborhood character. And to take a look at the current existing conditions and to put and to really clean up some lines and put some order into the zoning ordinance. I am just, one question to Aaron, my understanding is this TMU zone, the only change that took place with this was as part of the whole rezone that took place in the city. Is that correct, Aaron, on this site?
For the parcel of land that stretches from Bridge Street to Willard Street, there was a rezone on that parcel recently, I don't know exactly how long ago, but last, say, 3 to 6 months, to extend the TMU district back towards Willard, approximately, 60 feet.
Did that dissect the lot? That was the zone previously?
Yes.
Did that dissect the lot? That was the problem, was to clean that up?
Yeah.
Right.
it bisected the lot, so it extended further to that spot. And then the vacant piece, I think whoever said, there was a bankruptcy involved, and then there was a foreclosure.
Okay.
Property was foreclosed upon, and it just recently became, available for purchase. So that's when the Youngs got involved in trying to buy it. But, they're not here to, I don't think they want to upset the neighborhood. I'll speak to them after this meeting. I think I get the feeling of the board, and I get the feeling of the neighbors. But, it's just started out as a request for additional parking.
Sure, sure. It's just, when you look at this site, it's such a difficult corner, and by extending that zone, and I know the Pappases wanted to withdraw, but really what that does, that sandwiches that particular lot between the regional retail and the TMU zone, and it really, it compromises that particular parcel of land. And I seriously look at Willard Street. I travel Willard Street every day, and for the most part, when you take that turn off of Bridge Street, the feel you definitely get is a residential feel when you turn on there, and you've got the backside of Demoulas, and then you enter into Drake, and it turns into a suburban multifamily zone, which gives you the idea that it really starts at that point. There starts to be larger lots as well. So I certainly, I can actually appreciate how you got to where you are, Mr. Flood, and with your client. But I think something like this really needs support of the abutters in order to really move forward on something like this, in order to consider any kind of a rezone. I don't think that would serve the neighborhood very well, and I think it really harms parcel 80, because that really puts it in between.
It isolates it.
Yeah, it really does. So at this point, I certainly would not recommend to the city council that we would extend the zone as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shep. Mr. Genman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank and compliment the Centerville residents for coming out and informing us of your opinions on this. That's important to the process, and that's how we can really understand the feelings of the neighborhood. The Centerville Neighborhood Action Group is always good about making sure that they're here. And Mrs. Page, I hope that we don't have you dead in Lowell anytime soon. Born and bred is good, but we don't want to go there. I think that this board takes zoning changes very seriously. I know personally, I think the biggest issue we have to deal with in the city of Lowell is the protection of our neighborhoods. We can have all the sports facilities and businesses and restaurants we want, but if we don't have neighborhoods where people feel comfortable living, we have nothing. So I think, and that goes for overcrowding, overbuilding, and deterioration of neighborhoods. And when it comes to zoning changes, we have to take a look at what impact is that going to have on the rest on the abutters and the rest of that neighborhood. And you'd take one little parcel and you change it from a single-family zone or a residential zone to a multi-use or a business zone, and then suddenly it can cause a domino effect. And before you know it, our neighborhoods our livable neighborhoods are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. We have to be very wary of that and be careful that we don't open that door. So I think this change, as was voiced by all of you very eloquently, is a case where we invite that happening. If we were to change this zone, even if it were just for something as simple as an additional parking, which we might look at as a benefit, because the ability to build on that parcel has changed, the whole neighborhood can change. So I agree with Mr. Frechette. I don't think it's appropriate to make this change, and I wouldn't support recommending it to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of comments. As advertised, and everybody knew the matter was coming in for number 54, number 66, and number 80 Willard Street. So at this point in time, we have number 80 that's been withdrawn. Mr. Roy is on number 66. And Mr. Roy has a right to continue to run his business as is, the way it's set up now. So whichever way the zone change goes, it will not affect him per se. If he plans on keeping his business as is, this recommendation wouldn't affect him either way. So therefore, if we dismiss number 80, leave number 66 as is, then we're really looking down at number 54. So what that is there a zone change for that partial? And if we do start looking at number 54, then number 66, I think you have it heading up the street. I do know by being out there and checking the location out, I agree with Ms. Page, you know, Bridge Street has all the businesses, and this is a nice residential neighborhood, and I would like to see it maintain a residential neighborhood. Ms. Pappas doesn't want it, Mr. Roy continued to do his business. We did approve the other project already on Bridge Street with the support of the neighborhood. So I'd rather see this stay the way it is, let the new project come in, as was supported by the neighborhood. The neighborhood gave them their support, we listened to them, they came in before, we listened to the neighbors, they backed them, let them approve the plan that was before us that everybody agreed to. Therefore, I would not be in favor of the zone change as well. So, hearing that, at this point in time, anybody like Mr. Blockout, you want to be heard further?
I just want to make a comment after understanding this, that it really is, I mean, like Mr. Frechette has said, you drive down Willard Street, and I live over that way, and I drive it a lot. It's a residential neighborhood, and additional parking there just opens up opportunity to deteriorate the character of that neighborhood. And having said that, I just can't support a zoning change there and would not recommend it. Thank you.
At this point in time, we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend denial of the zoning change that was presented this evening.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes, and we have one person abstaining. So therefore, the motion will be 4 against the zoning change. What happens now procedurally, if, I imagine Mr. Flood will speak with his client, then he'll either decide whether to proceed before the city council. And as indicated, I said prior to the start of the public hearing, our recommendation has no bearing on the council. Obviously, they will listen to what we have to say, and your support at the city council meeting. If it goes that further, we'll be heard as well as we're heard this evening. Wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank
For
you.
showing up this evening. We appreciate your intake. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not.
Hung up to dry.
Oh, Danny Gilday. Yeah, well, years ago, so settled, it was about tender over the bridge for years.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Floody wanted to go next and jump ahead of us.
Did he really?
Just put in there.
Well, those are the owners of that property. So that's why it's set there.
Okay, moving along, we're going to go to the next public hearing. The next public hearing will be 295 Vadam Ave at Lowell General Hospital. A public hearing will be heard to hear all interested persons relative to a proposal to amend the Lowell General PDMI Master Plan. The amendment includes a 7-story standalone building located in the main campus quadrangle future infill additions to buildings south of the quadrangle and the power plant north of the main campus, a proposed helicopter pad, and 2 buildings located northwest of the main building cluster. Additional surface parking is proposed northwest of the main building in front of the proposed 7-story addition and includes a reconfiguration parking lot east of the main building. The plan proposes additional stormwater detention northwest of the parking fields. The area is presently zoned Plan Development Medical Institution and requires review under Section 10.2.7 of the Lowell zoning code. I just want to thank you, Mr. Hall, for letting us take care of the neighbors first. I know I took you out of order.
Whatever you want, Mr. Chairman.
No,
Only kidding.
I thought it'd be nice to the neighbors first, and
Just for the record, I want to let you know Mr. Flood wanted the next one second.
well,
I think he was kidding.
give them a chance to regroup.
Well, I'm Attorney James A. Hall from 25 Fletcher Street in Chepstow, Massachusetts, and I represent the petitioner at Lowell General Hospital. And with me is Wynn Brown, who's the Vice President of Administration of Lowell General Hospital, and Jerry Foley from Watermark Engineering. What I'd like to do after I make my short remarks, I'd like to have Mr. Brown come up and explain a global picture of exactly what's going on and what the hospital will be doing, hopefully in the future. And then Mr. Foley could step up and answer any questions that the board might have with respect to parking or issues that have been raised by Mr. Clausen or anything else, and I'll sit down. But we're here because back in the early 90s or mid-90s, believe it or not, I was here when it happened. I had represented the hospital those many years ago before this planning board. And Jerry was there, I might add. He represented the neighbors. And after a long, hard fight, with a lot of good input and a lot of good give and take from the neighborhood and from the hospital, we had a master plan approved. And it was the first medical PUD master plan in the city. And it pretty much has stayed, some changes have been made, but at this point we are required by our zoning bylaw to come back before this board to amend our plan. We have a dramatic new development that's been on the drawing board for many years, or several years at least, that will be a major change in how the hospital is able to do business and operate into the next century. So that's what we're here. We have a plan that we would like to change from what we had before to include this new building that the hospital intends to build. And we have to come before this board to get the board's approval. It's much like a college campus, like Boston College, or could be any college, Notre Dame, Harvard, that has a planned unit development. They always have to come back to the planners once they get their zoning and their master plan approved. To make any changes that have to be made, it has to go before this board. So we're actually going before this board initially to make the changes, to show what this global change will be, and then if the board approves that new master plan, then we'd have to come back before the board again to do a site plan. And at that point, we go from global to minutia, and we look at every bit of the construction and the building and everything that has to do with site plan review. And I must say, I was here on a site plan review just recently, and we went through a very exhaustive review on Middlesex Street and Wood Street. So that's what would happen. If this gets approved, we would have to come back again and actually get into the nuts and bolts and detail of the exciting new development that we have. So at this time, I'd like to terminate my remarks and ask Mr. Brown to make his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you, Attorney Hall. As Jim said, my name is Wynn Brown. I'm the Vice President of Administration at Lowell General Hospital, and it's my pleasure to be here before you today to give you an overview of our master facility expansion plan. The project, as you may recall, from about a year and a half ago, I came before you with some initial plans, and we were presenting them to you, and right after that, the capital markets disintegrated and the economy went down, and there really wasn't a way to finance our project. In the past 6 months, the capital markets have improved greatly, and projects of our size have been financed again in the capital markets, so we're very pleased with that. And last month, the Board of Trustees of the hospital voted unanimously to move forward with the project and to obtain financing in the bond market. So that's why we're back here before you today. In the interim time, since I was last before you, we've spent a lot of time refining the plan, tightening up the plan, making sure that we can accommodate everything that we want to do on our campus, and have used that really as a planning period while we've waited for the economy to improve. We've also worked along the way with the Pawtucketville Neighborhood Association. I've been before them on a number of occasions. I'm talking about what we want to do with the property and expanding the hospital. And at very early stages, we also invited them in to meet with our architects to talk about some of their concerns with the site and give them some advice as we move forward with the planning of our campus. So we've done a lot to involve the neighborhood along the way. Just as way of background, I think we're all aware that in the past 10 to 15 years, healthcare has evolved dramatically. We've gone from an inpatient model of care to an outpatient model of care, and in fact, 70% of the business at the hospital is outpatient related. To deal with some of that increased demand on our campus, which because outpatients have a lot more visits to the campus, we've developed a second campus at Drum Hill, which is largely outpatient in Chelmsford. But our inpatient volume has continued to grow, and in fact, the inpatient population is much sicker than they were just 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's a much higher acuity, which has really caused us to have a greater demand for inpatient beds and private beds. Right now, the hospital only has 17% private adult med-surg beds. 17%. So if you think about it, when was the last time you had to share a room with someone? Probably back when you were, growing up with your brother or sister sharing a room. That's just, the times have changed, and the state of the art is really to have private patient rooms, and post-construction we will have 84% private adult med-surg beds, so almost all our beds will be private. And we only have to look around us to Boston, down to Burlington, and just north into New Hampshire to see the changes that have been happening on those hospital campuses, where they've made major investments in private rooms and to their facilities. Half the facilities on our campus were built before 1950. Our most recent inpatient beds were built in 1978. And healthcare has changed dramatically. Technology has changed dramatically, and patient expectations have changed dramatically, from wanting private rooms, which used to be a luxury that are now the norm, to just the technology that is available at the bedside. And also in our operating rooms. It's changed dramatically, and though we've made a lot of investments in our plan over the years, you reach a point when there's a diminishing return for those investments, where you can remodel, you can renovate, you can do everything you can, but you're still going to come with a suboptimal result down the roads. We have an electronic medical record in our facility which is completely wireless, and having to work around 4-foot thick concrete walls and facilities that were not designed for wireless. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of money to reach those economies of scale that you want. To prepare for this, we've done two major projects. One which we completed and came before you about 2 years ago was the expansion of our parking garage up 2 stories, which we have completed. We completed in the spring, or the fall of last year, going from, I think we went from about 238 parking spaces in structured parking to 370. That is fully up and operational and working well for us. The second is that we've done in the middle of a major upgrade of our utility plant. Some of you familiar with our campus know we have a steam plant behind the campus which provides where our electrical, heating, and air conditioning comes from. We've done a new electrical feed from the street, so we have two feeds to the hospital now, and are separating our emergency and regular power as it comes up the hill to the hospital. That'll be completed this spring, and then the next phase, which we'll complete later this year, is a new chiller system that will improve the capacity of our plant, which was built 40 years ago, to service the campus, and will also make us a much more energy efficient campus, saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just in energy costs. This next step before us is to take down the shed building, which is the main hospital building you see as you come up our driveway. We plan to take down the shed building, and in its place insert there and back into the courtyard behind it a new 6, I guess it's 7 if you include the penthouse on the top story facility, which will really serve as what we call a partial replacement hospital. The basement level where our ORs are will be a new day surgery facility, new ORs, which will allow us to accommodate new technologies. We have smaller ORs on our campus, and the technology we have now really makes the operating rooms rather tight. On the next level up, which is adjacent to the cancer center, we will have a new main entrance. That new main entrance will give access directly to lab, radiology, and a patient service center. The next story up, which is the same level as our current main entrance, will be a new ED and trauma center. Right now, we have a trauma center that sees about 50,000 patients a year and was designed for 36,000. Very, very difficult to achieve greater economies of scale in that kind of space. Above that, we will add 3 new patient floors, each 30-bed units, which will bring our total bed complement up to 250. Right now, we are 217 beds, and we're adding 33 new beds to the hospital. So what will happen is a number of the semi-private rooms in the Mansfield Pavilion will become singles, and so we'll decompress the main hospital. So we're not, even though we're adding 90 beds, there's really only 33 true new beds to the campus. Also wanted to point out just the economic impact for the city and the region for this project over the next 2 to 3 years. The economic impact study that we did in conjunction with UMass Lowell showed that we'll add about a $200 million economic impact to the region. We'll add 337 construction-related full-time equivalents during the construction. And we will have, that will also spin off another 157 jobs in the region during construction. And post-construction, we expect to have a little over 100 new FTEs, going from about 1,813 employees to a little over 2,000 employees. So a big economic impact for the region and growth in the jobs for the city. This is in addition to the economic impact of the hospital annually of about $250 million on the region. So those are sort of some opening comments on the project and its importance to healthcare in the region and to the hospital. So I can turn it over right now to Jerry Foley, who can give you some more specifics, and we're happy to answer questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Absolutely, Mr. Foley. Did they have the portable one there? Is that one there? Yeah, usually the portable one's out there. You hit that green button, Mr. Foley? Yeah, the button is... Yeah, it should be on, right?
To, what's existing and what's proposed here, and the understanding that what we're looking at is a conceptual plan based upon some schematic designs, just some programming issues. So some of this stuff really isn't, really worked out in detail. But since we have to come in periodically, what we're trying to do is, give you a look ahead as to, what the hospital might be thinking. The area that Wynn was just referring to for this first effort is right here. Everything that's in peach is an existing structure. Everything that's in tan is a proposed structure. So the focus of this first effort will be right in here. This is where the bed tower will be. You'll note on the plan that we submitted that we also added some infill areas adjacent to or within the perimeter of the existing building. Those have not been fleshed out with respect to any specific use, but in the idea of bringing a master plan forward, there may be something there, there may not be, but we're just bringing it forward to present to you as an idea that the hospital has to try to capture some space. It could be, for example, on this...
Yes. Turn that a little bit and stand to the side so the gentleman over here can see.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Okay. Right,
This microphone only goes so far.
Or if you could push against the wall, whichever's easier.
Hang on, let me move this just a sec.
Okay, wait a minute. I just know the gentleman there couldn't see it. Now, Steve, I can see.
Steve can't see.
Do you want to push it back further to the wall, maybe? And then if you could stand to the right of it?
Mr. Chairman, why don't we invite these
Come
folks
sit
to
up
come
here.
in here and take a seat so everybody can see? No, come on in. Seriously.
You should be all set.
Usually the woman.
Try the other one.
Yeah,
You can do that too. I don't need to talk.
okay.
We'll give it back to you, Steve.
Thank you. All right, I'll stand over here. So as I said, this is the focus of the initial effort. These buildings out here are kind of on the wish list right now. No real programming in place right now for what those are, what they might be. Just again, taking a look at the campus in whole, we're probably looking at about a total of 16 acres here, which only represents a portion of the entire campus. And the parking that we show that is striped on the drawing is existing parking. The parking that is not striped is proposed future parking. And in response to a couple of questions that were put forth, I just want to indicate that as far as the gross floor area of the building, currently, right now, we're standing at 457,623 square feet. The shed building on the property, which is located now right here, it's not drawn in here because we're showing it gone on this drawing. The shed building represents 30,251 square feet. That will be coming down. The gross floor area for the bed tower will be 175,000 square feet. So the proposed, when we subtract the shed and add the new building, the proposed total gross floor area will be 602,372 square feet. If we apply the requirement for parking to that gross floor area number, rounding up, it brings us to a total of 603 spaces required. And the count that we have on the site right now for parking is 1,401. So when this bed tower is constructed, the parking that we have in place will already exceed the parking requirement by 2.3. A factor of 2.3. Again, you've got the required use for the zoning code, and then you have the use that the tenant really needs, and that's what really drives the parking. So we are proposing more parking. We added the spaces over here, 132, I believe, and we added spaces over here 3 years ago, and some spaces in here. So I think we're going to be okay for parking. I think, even if we didn't add any more parking, we'd probably exceed the existing requirement. In terms of the other questions that came up with respect to stormwater CSOs, again, the hospital is aware of the situation, and the city of Lowell did go through the process of putting in new utilities out in the street so they could do that separation. There are a number of different things happening at this hospital. With the construction of the cancer center that was done, I want to say 15 years ago, 16 years ago, now maybe? Yeah, quite a while. Everything from that point on conformed to the stormwater management requirements in place at the time, and they've been upgraded as the stormwater management requirements. So we've captured the runoff, we've retained it or detained it on site, and nothing's gone into to add to that system out in the city of Lowell. We've also done testing of the sources of other outflows from the building and from the site. These are old connections that tied in to contribute to that CSO problem. And there's more planning that needs to be done to make that happen. The hospital's well aware of that. It's on their list of things to get done. And we'll be working with the Lowell Wastewater Treatment Facility to make sure that happens. I know that does not respond to one of the questions relative to landscaping. Again, that's something that, as Attorney Hall said, would have to address specifically relative to the ratio of landscaping to parking and the amount of landscape buffering that we have to do for the neighbors. I just want to also point to your attention that this is an existing retention pond, this is an existing detention pond, and we're proposing another very long one here, which is kind of a recommended way of treating water as a best management practice for any future expansion. And there's plenty of land out here to make that happen. These are existing wetland areas, and you can see the 100-foot buffer zone on here. So that, I think, explains the plan as quick as I can explain it. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant? No? Okay. Anybody here like to speak in favor of the master plan from Lowell General Hospital?
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Oman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. I wish to be recorded in favor of this. This is an excellent proposal. I am aware of the area, and I've spoken in favor of this project different times throughout the processes. So I urge that the board recommend that this be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone else in favor of the master plan? Anybody else in favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition to the master plan? In opposition? In opposition? Yes, sir. Can you come to the microphone, please? Just state your name and address if you would.
Hello, my name is David Overka. I live on 42 Rita Street right now. We just purchased the property. We're not quite sure where that property is in relation to that. Actually, Rita Street had an extension onto it. I believe it's on the upper right-hand side.
Mr. Foley, you know what it is, or Jerry, you know what it is? I mean,
Yeah, it's so far off the plan that it doesn't show on this, at this scale. This is only showing a portion of the
so
city.
would it be the top left by the wetlands, you think, Mr. Foley?
On the other side of the wetlands, I believe.
I mean, do you overlook almost like a swamp, and then you see Lowell General, is that?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct,
exactly,
correctly. In
that's-
fact, I believe the top right parking lot, I think that's what we're looking at when we
Sure.
look across.
Yeah.
There's actually a helicopter pad in there right now that they use once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, all these changes, they're pretty much occurring within
Correct.
existing large general land?
Correct. See, what happens is, when they have, as indicated, they have to come before us once before to give us a master plan of the whole project, whatever's there at Lowell General. Now, when they want to amend anything on that master plan, they have to come before us for permission to amend it. And if we give them permission, then they would come back and we'd have what's known as site plan approval. And on that site plan, they would have to come before us, as indicated for those brown buildings. And at that time, we get a copy of the site plans with all the detail, and it all goes to the city engineer, the traffic engineer, the planning and development, who's represented by Mr. Clausen here today from us, the police department, the fire department, city engineer, and health department, and they all give us comments back before the public hearing. If you were a butter, you'd be notified by mail, depending on how close you live. If not, it'd be a public hearing. And then we would have to make a finding in regards to all of those plans and made sure that they met the criteria, which is by our zoning code here, that they met
Okay.
all that thing. So this, more or less, like Mr. Hall said, being able to say, it's a big project, and we put this in, it has its own type of unique zone, because it's called the, how do we plan it? It's called the Plan Development Medical Institution, where in Lowell, we don't have many of those zones. So this zone here has it, so this is a big overview, and when they want to bring something in, we have to see if it meets the existing master plan and see what their change would be. So the brown portion down below by the pink would be the majority of the work, I believe, is what Mr. Foley said, and then way out to the left, probably the ones by the parking, closest to you, he said maybe further developmental on site. But I don't, you thought that was sometime way down the road, Mr. Foley, at this point in time?
There's nothing specifically planned.
Yeah, just future building.
So the main thing with here, if they get a favorable reply from us tonight, then they'd come back on a site plan review, like, in the past, they've come in when they put in the parking garage. And then when they want to extend the parking garage and make it higher, they'd come back before us again. When they put the cancer treatment to the right, when you're up the main road there, they'd come in before us to make sure that met all the criteria, which we were very happy to see that. For obviously, there's a need for anybody in the city of Lowell, so they have to drive to Boston to bring family members there.
All right.
And it's, I mean, people don't like going there, but you get the care that you need, it's beneficial not to have to travel a long period of distance. So any type of site plan review would come back to us again with all that little criteria that would have to meet, whether they met, which we talked about already, the landscaping, whether they have the parking, and all that has to be done through the checklist.
Okay.
So that'd be more definitive plan that would be more scrutinized by all the department heads in the city, recommendations to us, and then a public hearing, it would go out, and all the neighbors would come in to speak in favor or against that plan in detail.
Okay, yeah.
I hope that answers some of your questions,
Yeah,
but this is like a master
I'll
plan
explain it.
project, 'cause we want to do this new plan, we want to see what the board, if we feel that would be in conjecture with the plan that we approved years ago, before they go further and come back with a site plan review, and then we go into detail of everything on
Okay.
site, the parking, the traffic, and all the other criteria.
Okay, well,
Helicopter pad, I don't know how we go with that, but you know, to see how it fits, but we don't have to worry about the traffic for the helicopter pad, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else want to speak in opposition or have any questions? Anybody else in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, the public hearing is closed. Any of the board members have any questions at this time?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Fischett.
First, just in the package that was provided, I didn't see any, topo map or anything giving elevations. Just a couple questions. I know in the earlier iterations, you were going to bring down the grade when you first approached the main entrance and expose, basically, that was going to be, the basement floor was going to become the new ground floor. Has that changed, or is that, so you still, Mr. Brown? You still looking to?
No, the idea is that when you come up the main drive, as we discussed when I was here before you earlier, we will excavate that hill that the shed building sits on, and literally we will back that building right into the courtyard that the buildings create behind it. And the new main entrance will be one level lower, almost at the exact same level as the cancer center entrance. And the reason we're doing that is that our radiology and lab services are actually one level down. And so this will give you direct access off the main entrance to lab and radiology. Currently, when you come into the hospital, you come into the main entrance, go to the middle to the back of the building, down the elevators, and then back to the front of the building underground to access those services. So this will put them right up front and address some of those outpatient things that I talked about. Because of the outpatient volume coming to the facility, coming in for testing and then leaving, it'll be much more convenient. The other piece is that we will put a new elevator core right at the front of the building. So when you come into the hospital, you will go right to the elevators. If you're going up to a patient floor, you go right to the elevators and don't have to access the back of the hospital. This will also allow us to separate patient movement in the back of the hospital for tests, treatment, ORs, from the visitor population at the front of the hospital. They call it sort of Disney on-stage, off-stage. And so it's the idea of separating both those flows, and that's
so
one
that
of the main
hasn't
things.
changed. And
that has not changed.
Okay, good, thank you. Just a couple things that I want to address relative to the master plan, and I think Mr. Brown did a good job articulating some of the positive things with the hospital, and the fact is, it's the largest employer in the city of Lowell besides the city of Lowell. And certainly, it provides a benefit to the community, but it also provides a challenge as being the largest employer, and we talk about quality of life issues, and we talk about access, and a great deal of planning documents in hours have gone into preparing planning documents subsequent to this initial approval, and partly to do with the process in order to be a little bit more proactive and less reactionary from the institutional standpoint and from the neighborhood standpoint. So as I look at the master plan that's here, and I know there were several iterations, and I saw some of the earlier iterations, and I know the neighborhood group did. I know the neighborhood group did not see the final iteration that we're sitting here looking at. And they had their annual meeting this evening, an election of officers, big night over there. But as I look at this master plan before us, and I look at the criteria that we're making this decision, under the 10.2.2, item number 4, it says, such a comprehensive development plan must be submitted to the planning board for its approval and be in accord with the stated or implied development objectives as listed in approved planning reports and studies of the city. Such approval is required prior to the issuance of a permit to build. And subsequent to the initial approval of the master plan, the city developed a master plan for the city of Lowell. In that master plan, on page 185, section 12.1.8, it specifically points out the need for Pawtucketville master plan because of the unique challenges with that particular section of the city, and partly to do with the large institutions that exist there, University, UMass of Lowell, Lowell General Hospital, Duville campus, and some of the other nursing homes along the Varnum Ave corridor. Specifically, it says the Pawtucketville master plan will develop specific recommendations concerning transportation, open space, preservation, housing, and commercial development, as well as institutional expansion and the protection of natural resources. So subsequent to this, the Pawtuckaville Master Plan was developed, and we actually had, we invited the Lowell General Hospital to have representation on the committee. Basha Cassidy was a representative for Lowell General. We actually had an evening where I believe Pat Crane at the time and Jody represented the hospital, and we certainly discussed some of the issues that were raised when this initial master plan was brought forth. And I know the hospital, matter of fact, has been very cooperative in currently making efforts to direct traffic to the signalized intersection. And I know a lot of time and effort has been put into putting some sort of signage at the intersection of Varnum Ave and Pawtucket Boulevard. I'm curious to get an update on that. Is that coming shortly, Mr. Brown?
Possibly tomorrow.
Okay, very good, very good. And that was in understanding as we sat there, and I think both parties started to respect what the concerns were, is that we're looking at a very unique neighborhood that's sandwiched between the hospital and Pawtucket Boulevard. And I don't know anybody in the city of Lowell that wouldn't respect the challenge that goes on there. And we've, week after week, we sit here and as Mr. Hall mentioned, he came before us for a project, and it was dragged out mainly because it was people concerned about traffic on their street. And it's a large concern that comes here before us. And when we're talking about one of the largest institutions in the city of Lowell, in the largest employer, I think it is negligent of this board not to take that into consideration. Part of this master plan and part of the discussion, and we've had this discussion with other institutions along the Varnum Ave corridor, and Duville, for one, did take the recommendation and actually put it into their planning, is the elimination of having a third driveway. The concern is, what we have here in this master plan is the existing driveway, which is the main entrance, and we have the service entrance, and then there was this proposed third drive, and that was a serious issue, as it brings traffic further down into the neighborhood. And really, at the time when the Pawtuckaville Master Plan was developed, I think it was a sincere understanding that, I think the neighborhood made it clear what the concern was here. And the action step, which was approved by the city council, this is a city document, is that the city will ensure that future growth at the Lowell General Hospital site will be accessed primarily through the easterly access drive to the site, closest to Pawtucket Boulevard, limiting the amount of traffic growth experienced through the surrounding residential neighborhood. It's my opinion that it's incumbent upon the board at this stage to make sure that the circulation of the site be addressed in the master plan to meet what the spirit of this planning document has outlined. And part of that is not to have a proposed road on there that would bring traffic further down into the neighborhood, but to create the circulation within the site to access proposed buildings in the back, but using the existing drives in there. And I know in the early iterations, that drive was eliminated.
Right, it currently exists on our master site plan because that was put in when we went forward, where we thought that we were going to put an assisted living facility in the rear of the property. So that third driveway, well, in addition to what we had initially discussed with the neighborhood, is not a new addition to the master site plan. It currently sits on the site plan.
Correct. It is a road that currently doesn't exist.
It doesn't, but it does exist on our current site plan.
And right now, what we're voting on is the master plan, and I think this is, in order to be really taking this planning document, taking it and using it for one of the largest institutions in the city is appropriate. Is appropriate.
Oh, sure.
That's why we created these. And so really what I would look for is, in order for me to move forward on this evening, is that be removed from the Lowell General Master Plan, circulation be designed within the site to access future parking and future buildings taken into consideration.
Okay. Well, before I adjust that, I think you're more aware than everybody else of what we've done in the neighborhood to ensure that we have minimal impact on the neighborhood. We paid for the controlled intersection when it was constructed.
$25,000 for the design.
Yeah, for the design of that. We have taken control of the triangle of land which is at the intersection of Pawtucket and Varnum. stopped the cut-through that exists there, taken control of that from DCR, and are, as early as tomorrow, although it's been coming forever, a new main entrance sign there to direct people to the main to the hospital's main entrance, but also providing directions as you leave Varnum Avenue to get people to the right parts of the city. We have, when we built our parking garage to minimize the impact to the neighborhood, we staged 150 18-wheelers with steel off campus and brought them in as needed at times of day that didn't obstruct traffic. We bussed 350 staff a day off campus so we didn't impact the neighborhood. And we've had to go build at Drum Hill to get people off our campus. So,
and as I said,
and we've listened, and every vendor who comes to our campus and delivers to our delivery bays is required to exit through the controlled intersection. They realize that they will lose their privilege to be our vendor unless they're going up to, say, Duville or one of the other facilities, because we really are a healthcare corridor. I think we've tried to be extremely responsive to the neighborhood and empathize with the neighborhood, knowing that we are the big kid in the middle of the block with a lot of traffic. I understand your concern about that third driveway. We don't have concrete plans for what we would do back there at this point in time, but we already have that driveway on our current plan, and feel that we do have, I think it's about 67 acres, that at some point in time may want to do some other development on our property, not exactly knowing if that would be physician offices or some outpatient services or perhaps some other assisted living facility in the future. Taking advantage of the campus as we have it now. Now, that said, I think that, we're looking to go forward to site plan review. I think we'd be willing to take that. Maybe I'll turn it over to Attorney Hall to respond to that, but I think we'd be willing to entertain some discussion on that anyway. Thank you.
This is something that I first heard of just before the meeting, but I'd like to proceed if we could get further comments from the board and then maybe take a 5-minute break to discuss this issue in detail with my clients, if that's all right with the board.
I have no problem with that. Give me the other board members, okay? Jerry, do you have any more? I'll let Jerry continue that, and I'll pass them to board members, and we'll get back to you, okay? Sure. Anything else you want to add, Jerry, on that, or?
I think that from obviously the master plan as a whole, I think that was one of the larger issues. I think Mr. Foley had alluded to the fact that with site plan review would be looking at landscaping and some of the drainage issues as well that I'd be concerned about. But that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Jevon, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. You mentioned that in the final plan, you had over 1,000 parking spaces, which was a 3-to-1 ratio.
It's 11,000 square feet.
2.3.
2.3 to 1 ratio over what is required. How many spaces do you currently have in the? That's what you currently have. So even as the parking is currently constructed, you have more than double the amount of spaces that's required by the zoning code. Okay. The current location of your helipad is somewhere out back here. Is that right? Is currently a helipad on the property?
Actually, we don't have a helipad on the property right now. From time to time, we'll use one of our parking lots. The majority of the time, we use Regatta Field. It's the primary landing spot for the trauma in the city. And that's the proposed space. As I've mentioned, I think earlier tonight, we still have to do some wind studies to make sure that spot works because of where the buildings are situated and how the winds go. But we initially thought that we would put it on the roof of the building, but it turns out that from a construction standpoint and what you have to do with your roofing materials, it's about $500,000 more to put it on the roof. I can do a lot with $500,000. So, and this, where we're proposing to put it, when we get more in detail, it might move a bit. But that's right next to the new emergency entrance. One of the things that we've done in this plan is relocated the emergency entrance, which is currently almost parallel to Varnum Avenue and up a steep drive, to the back, right behind the cancer center. So we have a much better, gentle slope arriving to the campus for emergency vehicles.
I see. Okay. I remember when we approved actually the expansion on Rita Street, where this gentleman's property is. And one of the issues up there was the use of the land somewhat close to the Rita Street development as a landing spot for a helicopter. I thought it was a helipad. It must be just a parking lot.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the plan is to actually move that landing location closer to the building.
Closer to the building.
So it would actually be, I think, a benefit for the residents on Rita Street who had some issue with that previously. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lockhart? Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple of, just looking at that plan, you've got an awful lot of asphalt space up there, which has got to aggravate the drainage situation, even though you're proposing new detention, and seem to have it under control, but there's a lot there, and it's reflected in your numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Jerry, you had said 603 spaces were required, and you have a little over 1,400, is that correct?
1,401.
1,401 or something, yeah, something like that. I'm just wondering, in the planning process, if you didn't look at a separate parking garage, I know you're under cost pressures, and if that might not work better and help to the drainage issues that, are obvious.
We have looked at parking, structured parking that would be, if you come in the service entrance driveway about a third of the way up, we've looked at putting a parking structure there. The trouble is at about $30,000 a space, it's cost prohibitive, and as you know, people in Lowell don't really want to pay for parking, and if they do, they want to pay $1 an hour. And that would really be a staff parking structure. So we have looked at it, but it's cost prohibitive. We went up in the parking garage. We had designed the garage to go up, and it was a fraction of that because we had already done all the site work and everything, and the engineering was all done. So going up at the front of the hospital was a much less expensive project than a structured parking garage in the rear that you won't get paid for. And we do have the land to do it, and we know that we have to work on our stormwater piece, and we'll roll that into the master facility plan and the construction project, and we'll time that out as part of the project.
Yeah, okay. No, I can appreciate what you're saying. It can be an expensive proposition. And in relation to the landscaping of the parking lot, and I guess the larger question is, are you going to employ any green technologies here in your construction? Specifically, there are ways of dealing with drainage, as you know, in parking lots by providing landscaped areas, and that again might be helpful. Is that part of the...
There'll be a number of green initiatives. This building will not be LEED certified, largely because LEED certification is a very expensive process to go through. But Massachusetts DPH has new requirements for building construction in hospitals, which require you to meet certain LEED standards, from the materials you use to the systems you employ. So you have to reach certain green or LEED standards, but you're not required to go forward and get the certification for that. One of the major things that we're doing right now that is might not be sexy, but is very green, is the upgrade to our utility plant, which is 40 years old and running on old technology. The upgrades of our boilers and our chillers and those kinds of things are really a first step toward that.
Okay, and just one last comment. I agree with Mr. Frechette about the traffic and the entrances here. I think from a facilities planning standpoint, that certainly has to be addressed.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Claremont?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, just a comment. I think it's a wonderful level of commitment that the hospital is showing to the facility and also to the city of Lowell for that type of investment. So to be congratulated on that. As I understand it now, your beds are just increasing from 214 to about 250, correct?
We're 217. We actually added 3 beds to our license when we transitioned our TCU from a TCU to a med-surg floor, and we added 3 beds when we did that.
That larger space will be required because you're moving towards private rooms
Right.
rather than semi-private, et cetera. Have you done any sort of interior traffic study in putting this plan together to determine, whether it would flow properly without that third entrance and exit?
Not to the extent that we have looked at that, because it's been more conceptual than that, but we will be doing part of a parking survey and parking study as we move forward. And we've done them from time to time for the front of the building, obviously, because that's where we have a lot of stress on the facility. The rear entrance of the facility is really more long-term parking, where it's almost exclusively at this point in time staff parking. And so, they're coming and parking for a shift and then leaving, versus the front, where your average visitor is there an hour to 2 hours. So there's a lot more traffic at the main entrance, which goes back to the controlled intersection.
Are you anticipating during construction losing beds during that period of time, or do you anticipate being able to keep everything?
No, I mean, one of the nice things about the way that we're moving forward with this site is, one, we've already built the parking that we need during the construction, because we will lose some of the surface level parking to the right in front of the cancer center during construction. So we've already created capacity for that. The other piece is that we'll have to do some changes in traffic flow during the construction, but the emergency department it still operates. All your patient beds still operate. So we actually will have full capacity of the hospital with some, obviously during construction, some changing traffic patterns at the front to accommodate what's going on at the time. But really that construction happens in an open space and doesn't affect the rest of the hospital to any great extent.
All right, I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was just going to follow up on some of the questions Mr. Claremont made. So I know like the big brown spot would be where most of the new construction is, correct?
Yes.
And so you don't anticipate that affecting your service capacity for the hospital, the way it's set up when you're doing your construction?
No, no.
What about the two little brown spots a little closer to the main entrance that are kind of like...
Well, I think when we get to site plan review and you see the elevation, the front one, it wraps around the main entrance. And that, we need to do some adjustment to the main entrance to become the emergency department entrance.
Okay.
So that is to accommodate some patient flow, because you're going to enter on the current main level for your emergency department. And so there's going to need to be some connectivity from the front main entrance across the front of the Mansfield Pavilion, or through the Mansfield Pavilion in. So we have that there as really the placeholder, but we know that that's largely the space where that's going to happen. The space behind that to the left, which is U-shaped facing it, is an outdoor courtyard, which abuts our Clark Auditorium, and patient rooms wrap around it. And we largely put that there for development, in the sense that we've had some thought perhaps that we might put a glass roof or something on it and make it more of an atrium and a indoor space. We can't fill it in because we have patient rooms facing it, but we do see a point where we could consider perhaps roofing it off and making it a more usable outdoor space year-round. But that's not in this first phase of the plan, but since we're coming for site plan, we're getting ready to do that and we might as well put it out there as something we want to do. And then there's a little notch of space in front of Hanchett, which is really potential infill with a canopy or something for an entrance down there. Nothing dramatic, not multi-story. That's down by our current ED entrance right now. And
I did like the part that you said that the elevators would be to the front, because now you got a little ways to get to the elevators.
Yeah.
And you come in, take a
Right.
right, down the back, cut around.
Well, these are largely Hill-Burton-built hospitals from the 50s that have then grown and grown and grown. And one of the key components of this new building, I love it, we call it a bed tower, it's about 4.5 stories above ground, is that it actually corrects a lot of the sins from the past. It gives you circulation for the Mansfield Pavilion and the new building, the new facility across the front. I don't have a name for it, but if you have $3 to $5 million, I'd be happy to put your name on it. And in the back, it connects the rest of the house with a new set of elevators. So it takes care of a lot of the internal circulation issues we have.
Site plan approval won't get our name on there?
Yeah, put our name on it.
I know it gets our stamp, but that's about it.
Would like to donate, but it may be a conflict.
Yeah, we have our conflict rules tonight, we gotta sign off on
Yeah.
that. So, will you have any problem with the parking, like you said before, when you do a construction? Are you gonna keep it on site? I know you talked earlier when
No,
Jerry
we
mentioned how you did a lot
don't-
of things off-site.
No, because what we did is we added 130 spaces on the front in the garage, And right now, what the parking lot will take out at the time of construction, I believe, is about 44 spaces. We call it our overflow lot to the right as you come up the drive. So we still have a net of about 100 new parking spaces, and that has really given us the flexibility to manage our parking very well this year. We have not run out of parking and have really had ample space. You know, and we actually, you know, had hoped we'd be in construction at this point in time if the economy hadn't changed and we'd be using it all. But it's worked out very well for us.
One question is not concerned the site plan, but why are the emergency rooms always in the basement?
Well, actually, it will be the first floor
Yeah, but I
now.
mean, everywhere else you go, right to the basement.
Yeah.
Any particular reason? Must be some planning reason for that.
You know, well, the current emergency department, just for a history lesson for those of you who might not know it, you know, it used to be open where it is now. The ICU that sits above it floated on pillars, and you could actually drive underneath the ICU. And then, I want to say 20 years ago, I think it was about 91, we infilled and built the ED underneath the ICU, and that's why it's there. The new main entrance is much more convenient and direct access, and also you're right above the ORs. Right now you have to transit across the hospital to go down to the ORs. It's a very nice setup for us. It really corrects a lot of issues with the facility and gives us, you know, 175,000, you know, almost a third new space for the hospital to grow into, to serve the community. So.
Thank you. I have no further question. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
sure.
I said
Mr.
one
General,
other
yep.
thing came to mind. Mr. Lockhart mentioned the amount of asphalt you have there, and there was a comment made by the DPD about landscaping in the parking areas. Is that something you're going to address now, or is that something that you want to address in the site plan review?
I think we're planning to address that in site plan review, but we know what the requirements are for the landscaping of parking.
Okay. And the other thing I also did want to comment that I think Mr. Frechette brings up a valid concern regarding the traffic with the extra access onto Varnum Ave. And I was thinking that, you know, that road that goes around the rear here, the leftmost road, if that could be connected to the current entrance, I mean, I think you could accomplish everything you wanted to accomplish with that access road without creating a new exit onto Varnum Ave. I know that the exit is there because it was initially a separate facility that you needed to access, but it seems like that might be a good compromise.
Okay.
Mr. Hall, anything? Sure, I just wanted to say, did you want to add anything as a result of what any of the board members said or what Mr. Brown said before you? Okay. So at this point in time, we'll take a 5-minute break, therefore give Mr. Hall a chance to speak with the applicants, and we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll just gonna bring, you know?
And I think we probably could somewhat, if not completely, accommodate some of the questions that Jerry and Steve have raised relative to the driveway, and I think Joe also raised some issues that we could agree tonight that if this plan were approved, that we would eliminate the curb cut on Varnum Avenue so that we would not be able to exit our property from that street. We do, quite frankly, I think Steve had a wonderful idea where you could cut and bend that road into the other exit. We don't have any plans now concretely as to even using that road. Probably it would tie in there. We could eliminate the concerns of the neighborhood, at least at this point. But I want to be clear, if in the future something comes up that's very, very important to the city, to my client, to the neighborhood, that we could still come back and try to get a bite of the apple to open that. We have no intention of doing it at this time. It would be a new plan, new hearings, but I wouldn't want to stand here hopefully 20 years from now like I did 20 years ago and come in here and say we want to get down what we affectionately call Donovan Drive at the hospital. For those who are at the meetings, the neighbors christened it Donovan Drive after Bob Donovan, the president of the hospital. But we'd like to, if a plan makes sense 20, 30, 50 years from now to come out that way, then we'd tell the board, yes, we'd come back and try to convince the board that we would do that. But at this point, we could agree to the master plan to cut off access so that we would not be able to, we could probably have a strip or a buffer of a foot between that. And then if we ever did want to access in the future, we'd have to come back and get the board's approval. And I think in the future, we might take Mr. Gendron's idea. Who knows what's going in the back, but it does make sense to come back and curve into that second westerly exit and egress.
And again, the intention to Mr. Hall is that's exactly correct, is to direct circulation. You can still encourage other development on the site, but direct the circulation within the current entrances on the site. And again, I give credit to Duville and the board over there and the administration is they were faced with the very same issue. And they came forward with a plan that did not create another form of egress, understood what the concerns were, and that you would access through the campus and circulate to the other entities. So it really does work, and that's really the proper way of doing it, and would appreciate that. And that's what I would require for myself to move forward on this particular master plan at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, if you know, Jerry, the distance from that proposed entrance to the nearest abutter on the left-hand side as we look at it?
It's Solomon's Mental Health, but they actually have have a drive right next to that. So it's actually with 1, 2, 3.
All right, so there's no residential neighborhood right there? Okay, all right.
But you'd have three forms of egress right within a very short distance.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I agree with that as well.
It's about 100 feet.
And it's Solomon, the old Solomon Mental Health, yeah, all right.
Any further questions on the board? I mean, Attorney Hall, I definitely agree with what you're saying, that we know you're not afraid to come back before us, and the last project you had, I think you set a record for us. I know, and the end result, it worked out for everybody. And
worked out wonderfully.
We gave you due diligence for coming back, changing the plan, coming back, addressed our comments and neighbors' comments, coming back, so we know by your commitment tonight, it's not fetched in stone, but you indicated, we know if anything has to change, it will come back, and if your intent is, as this is a master plan, it's a plan for us to work with, and if you agree to come in that way, obviously, we'll be seeing it at site plan, and obviously, we'll get another full, complete set of plans to look at it, but we understand your commitment to it, and we appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, with that, I certainly would make a motion to approve the master plan with the amendment of the eliminating the egress of the proposed third drive and redirecting the circulation of traffic on the site.
I'll second that.
I'd
Motion?
also like to perhaps add to that, that motion be made without prejudice to the applicant to come back at some point in the future if that needed to be amended for any reason to seek that, the third drive, we could consider it at that time.
Which, under the master plan, would be something that you could,
Right.
anyways, under zoning, so, sure.
Is that acceptable to the make of the motion as amended by?
It's allowable by zoning. I don't know if it needs to be reiterated into our decision, but certainly, I would prefer not to see that as an amendment to the motion.
I just put it forward as a clarification of what we had discussed and
Okay.
agreed to as
Okay, so we'll leave it out as the form of the motion, but it's a clarification, it can always come back in the future, as allowed by.
As allowed by the zoning.
So we do have a motion on the floor, a second on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. So we approve the new amendment to the master plan. Any timetable you think we'll see you for site plan, out of curiosity? I mean, we're here twice a month
Jerry.
anyway, so it doesn't matter to us. I mean, I know it takes a lot of work on the site plan it does for this, Mr. Foley, right?
Well, the architects are still doing their business, so.
So I'm just out of curiosity what timetable you're looking at. Spring, okay,
Spring.
okay. Good luck, we'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Good presentation.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Great project.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Jerry.
See you, Jerry. Happy New Year.
Moving along on the agenda, on the new business, we have a review and report. This is a petition to discontinue a portion of Edward Street in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81I. The board will review a petition by Kaufman Realty requesting the discontinuance of a portion of Edward Street. The planning board must review the request and issue a report prior to the city council public hearing. May we hear the case for the applicant,
Mr.
please?
Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, representing Kaufman Realty, the prospective developer of a Walgreens drugstore located on Edwards and Middlesex Street. As you're probably aware, my client was a successful bidder on an RFP issued by the city of Lowell for a portion of that site. And and if you look at the subdivision plan, it's the portion to the left. It's a strip that runs from Middlesex Street back to where the parking lot is for the soccer fields. We've been in front of the Conservation Commission, and they've issued a negative determination of applicability. So the next step would be to go to the planning board. Now, my clients did meet with Aaron and George prior to going any further to discuss what steps should be taken. What we would need a site plan approval from the planning board. We need a subdivision approval from the planning board. We need a special permit from the Board of Appeals for a drive-through. We might need a variance from the Board of Appeals for the width of some driveways, and then we need the abandonment of a portion of Edward Street for the city, from the city council. Edward Street, as it presently exists, is located right where the building is to be built. So it was a recommendation of both George and Aaron that we proceed to the city council to request a conditional abandonment prior to coming to the planning board, because they felt that the planning board probably wouldn't want to vote on something that might not happen in the future. So what we have done is we filed a request with the city council to schedule for hearing the 12th. And I sent a copy of the order. Was that passed out, Aaron, the order?
Yeah, it's the vote.
And as you can see, the abandonment, if approved by the city council, would be conditional on, one, that the new subdivision be approved by the planning board, two, that the roadway, the new roadway of Edward Street be constructed to bind a course, that there'd be sufficient bonding provided to the city to make sure that the street would be completed, and that the city manager would sign off on these, on the work. So I think I'm here tonight under, what is it, 4181I, just for your report back to the city council. I think the whole decision is going to be up to you people anyways, because you'd have to approve the new roadway in the end. So I'm here to answer any questions, and hopefully you'll agree with this process, because that's what's been recommended by your department.
So, Mr. Flood, let me make sure I get the process correctly. You come here first, then from here, it will go to the city council for the abandonment of the street with those conditions as you outlined.
The condition, the abandonment, the order would be conditional upon your approvals.
So it
So
goes from
nothing,
us to the council, conditional upon our approval coming back for site plan?
then we come back for site plan, subdivision, and then the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
And nothing would happen until everything's been
So
approved.
it'll go to the council after here, then back to us?
Yeah, I'm scheduled there next week.
Oh, okay. So you need subdivision and site plan for us?
Yep. We need the subdivision to establish the new roadway. I've given you a plan of where it would be.
I'm just trying to make sure I get the,
Yep, and
do
then
the subdivision, the site plan,
at the same time.
that's what I thought.
Same time.
So it'd be the same meeting? Okay.
Excuse me?
That'd be the same meeting? the
Same meeting
subdivision
with you
thing?
people, right.
I just want to make sure I get the procedural.
And I
layout.
think once we get through the city council and they get the conditional abandonment, we probably come in before to discuss the plan before we finalize it with you people. That was recommended by them,
Like a
too.
preliminary plan?
Preliminary plan, right.
Which is here.
Any of the board members have any questions for the applicant?
I'm a little confused about what we're supposed to do. I mean, are we voting on whether
Yeah,
or
we have
not
to
we
vote,
think
but
the...
basically, actually, if you look at our bylaws, it says nothing about closing of the road. So what I did is I looked up Mass General laws as indicated in the applicant, and all that says is that the planning board makes a report to the council. Section 41, Mass General laws 41, Section 81I, which is indicated on the application, so it goes on and says, duties of municipalities having no map or whatever, it just says, proposed layout alterations, relocation, or discontinuance has been referred to the planning board of such city or town and such board as reported therein to the council. So it doesn't really cut out what our criteria is, what we have to find.
It's not that clear, but
Right.
the planning board is probably the final decider anyway, Steve, because you would have to approve the subdivision to approve the new roadway. And I think that's what this statute was trying to provide for us. So it's just a report that, I suppose the report would be, this would be the procedure that we would follow, Aaron.
It could address that too. I think if I could maybe
Sure, Aaron, if
clarify
you
that
want
a
it.
little bit.
Absolutely.
This is a unique project because usually when you would have a situation where there's a request to discontinue a street, there's not necessarily going to be a definitive subdivision process that's going to follow that's linked to the same request to discontinue the street. So broadly speaking, the planning board is tapped to provide a report to the city council on how the discontinuance of the street affects the general growth or land use or the planning approach for the city. The planning board is the citizen planning council, and approves or works on the master plan, approves the subdivision regulations, does the site plan approval. So I think typically in the typical project you would be reviewing this and how it relates to the master plan and how it relates to good planning principles. In this case, there's a bit of a redundancy built into it because you're going to be reviewing the new street through definitive subdivision later, as well as site plan review. So there's, that's where you're going to get into the real specific nuts and bolts of this project.
Yeah, but there's no abandonment or establishment of a new way until we're complete with you people. So your final approval would be what's required under that statute. It's just another step in the process.
Yeah. How about notification, Aaron? Is there any notification that goes out about this particular vote?
Not on the planning boards.
This doesn't require, Steve, a public hearing, which I looked up, and
Well-
it was given to us by,
It's been in the paper.
So I see this project as being a highly controversial project in the city. I think we've talked about this intersection before and the issues with this intersection and the Rourke Bridge right there. I can tell you that that soccer field is starved for parking. I see it from the plan here, you maintain the parking lot and provide some access, but on the weekend, when there's soccer games going on there, there's cars everywhere, parked everywhere. It's impossible to get in and out of Edward Street when the soccer game's going on. This proposal would put the drugstore there with egresses onto the new Edward Street, which would only make that issue worse. I have some real concerns about this project as a whole. So I guess I'm concerned about voting in favor of abandoning the street to get the ball rolling here, because I'm not so sure that that's the right thing for us to do as a city.
But that whole traffic issue, all of that will be discussed in front of your board during site plan approval and subdivision approval. And
I understand
nothing
that.
is being abandoned until you approve it. So if you don't approve it, there's nothing abandoned. And this is just, I think
We
it's
avoid
just
the
the
whole
process. And this is at the recommendation that we're proceeding in this.
So does your client own the properties along Edward Street now?
He has them under agreement. They're gonna require everything but the one in the back. As you can see, it's owned by LeBlanc. All of the
Steve,
other
going all the
properties.
way down to the right. Steve, when you go down Edward, you know, you come as far as you can, Steve, down the street?
Yeah.
The one to the right there. You know, the new plan we got today, I don't know if that'd be their house right there. So when you
Steve,
go down
right
Edward
here.
Street as far as you can, you go left, Steve, to the parking lot, that house right on the right is LeBlanc's.
Yeah.
And I think there's been some discussions about providing parking within their parking lot on Saturday, so. But that's
So-
stuff that'll be discussed in front of you.
So you said that the Conservation Commission rejected your,
No, they found that it's not applicable. We have no conservation problems, a negative determination.
okay. I have some real concerns about the project, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to recommend, relocation of the street based on that.
But I think, I think the whole issue here, there's nothing to be relocated or abandoned until you people approve the subdivision or the site plan. So I think what you're doing is saying, this is the way, the recommendation to the council was, we'll proceed this way, but the final decision's up to you people. Because that's what the order says.
Just comes back.
At some point, the matter of this proposed project will come to us for subdivision approval, site plan approval, planning board, Board of Appeals for a special permit and possibly a variance. So this order of discontinuance wouldn't take effect unless it passed through all
Everything's
of
passed.
those boards. All the traffic, and I'm presuming there'll be traffic studies that'll be presented, we'll be reviewing things of that nature. So none of this will come into play unless that's approved. What I would suggest, and I'll throw it out for your consideration, is that, point number one under this proposed order says that the subdivision plan related to the Walgreens development project be approved by the Lowell Planning Board. Perhaps we should make that more specific, that the subdivision plan and site plan related to the Walgreens development project be approved by the Lowell Planning Board, and the special permit and any variance required be approved by the Board of Appeals. I think that encompasses everything that you may potentially have to do, and it makes it clear that all those things have to be satisfied before the discontinuance would kick in.
I think our approval on this vote suggests that, at a high level, we're supportive of the discontinuance of the street and the relocation of the street.
Well, in order to come in front of you, Steve, we have to discontinue it. There has to be a discontinuance because part of the area involved in the building is the existing Edward Street. So,
And I don't think I'm supportive of taking a street that currently has residential housing on it and discontinuing it so he can put up a Walgreens.
Well, it's all properly zoned. We don't need any variances or anything.
You need to
and-
move
and
the street,
city-
though, and that creates a real problem for the city-owned soccer fields behind there because of the issues around parking there. So I think it's a real concern, and I would not be supportive of relocating that street.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Mr. Fischett.
if you could read that Mass General Law in Chapter 41, Section 11. I agree with Mr. General, it's just a little unclear as to what we're charged with here this evening.
It says, duties of municipalities having no official map in respect to construction of ways, references to the planning board. Section 81I, in a city or town having a planning board established under Section 81A, but which has not adopted an official map, no public way shall be laid out, altered, relocated, discontinued, unless the proposed layout, alterations, relocations, or discontinuances has been referred to the planning board of such city or town, and such board has reported thereon, or is allowed 45 days to lapse after such reference without submitting its report. Any city or town having a planning board established under Section 81A may by ordinance, bylaw, or vote provide for the reference of any other matter or class of matters to the planning board before final action thereon, with or without provisions that final action shall not be taken until the planning board has submitted its report or has had a reasonable fixed time to submit such report. Such planning board shall have full power to take such investigations, maps, and reports and recommendations in connections herewith relating to any of the subjects referred to under this section as it deems desirable. So it's kind of mumbo.
Yeah, and it's kind of indicating that we could require information in order to make that, it almost implies that some of the things we're talking about,
Yeah,
traffic studies and everything else.
Yeah, we need
we could-
more information to make a
To
determination.
make a determination, that's,
You almost have to go through the site plan process to get to that point.
yeah, I mean,
I
that's,
mean, how else are you gonna
well,
make a
worded
decision?
very,
No, in-
very clearly.
No.
It doesn't give you a very good direction.
No.
Because the next step then from this vote would be
To send it to the council.
send it to the city council, and then the city council votes on it,
Abandon the street.
to send to abandon the street.
Yeah, but the order, Jerry says that the order of discontinuance and abandonment shall not become effective and shall not be recorded until you people act on the subdivision, and as Joe suggested, the site plan. So all of that has to be taken care of for the abandonment that's right in the order.
Become effective.
No, and I can appreciate that. I also appreciate what Mr. Jenner is saying, is we've started the ball rolling on it.
Yeah, start the
and
ball
then-
rolling on the site plan.
But I'm even, on the guidance in the Mass General Law indicates that there would even be some sort of, an analysis that's done at the planning board level in making this decision, and not just, well, okay, it'll come back to us. Again,
Let me just ask this question. If we send this to the city council, they're gonna abandon the street, but it actually won't take place until a plan comes back from you saying, this is what we're proposing here, so we
No,
gotta.
they won't abandon it, Rich, until the planning board approves the the subdivision plan.
Right, so it's gotta come back to us,
And the subdivision plan establishes the new roadway,
right.
all right? So if you don't approve the
But
subdivision
at
plan,
that point, we can say,
there's no abandonment. There's no abandonment.
Yeah.
And if you do approve it, it's still not effective until Edward Street, the new roadway is constructed to bind, of course. That's to provide access to the soccer fields
yeah,
during
that's
construction.
important, for
We
sure.
can't start building then because it's not abandoned, so we can't take that area down. And that, we have to bond it, and then the city manager has to sign off. So there's a lot of protections in here. And, but we want to get the ball rolling now they're at this point. And this is what was recommended to us. This is the way to proceed.
I mean, I understand what Mr. Gendron is saying. He doesn't want to seem like he's giving a tacit approval to a project where we haven't seen any traffic studies. We don't really know what's facing us. But I think the way that this is worded, that it wouldn't take effect until we get all those things and until we approve subdivision and site plan. And I would like to add, and the Board of Appeals approves special permit and any necessary variance. Until all those things happen, the discontinuance wouldn't take place. I mean, I'm not certain why this is condition precedent to you even filing an application. You have to get this in first.
Well, I was surprised, but because I think the intent of this was that the planning board is the one that makes a determination of a new roadway. And usually you have the abandonment in the new roadway and that it's taken care of at that time. That's what's going to happen here.
Right.
So
But it couldn't happen all at the same time.
No.
Yeah, so that's why we're.
So you couldn't bring this in the same night as the site plan and subdivision,
The what?
the discontinuance request?
We couldn't bring it, no.
You couldn't request a discontinuance at the time of the site plan or the subdivision? You'd have to
No,
request
because, I
procedural.
mean, it was George and Aaron that said, you people wouldn't want to vote on something, and we go through that whole process. I mean, that's the memo said that if it was never abandoned, then it's all for naught. So this at least gets it started, but nothing's effective until you approve it. I mean, I think it's the easiest way to get around it.
If I could ask a question, Aaron, is subsequent to whatever we do here this evening, if let's say we approve recommending for the city council to abandon the road, or that's the city council's going to then take?
Just to proceed with the process.
Yeah, subject to those conditions, Jeff.
Subject to those conditions, is the city council meeting going to be a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yes.
That'll be a public hearing, so then, and then
Okay,
if the public they've got concerns, and that would be the first step, is to go to their elected officials and say, you know what, this is something we don't want, and
Right.
then the city council either gives it that next shove over the, along the process to come back to the planning board, or decides not to abandon it, and that's where that public hearing would take place.
Yeah.
For
Well,
the
not to-
continuance, yes, with the
yeah.
city
If they
council,
vote
but
not
there
to
will be-
abandon it or
Right.
not to approve a conditional abandonment, then it'll never get to you.
Okay, all right, I mean, that's, so I understand.
I don't think Mass General Laws requires you to come before us on this for a reason. It's not just to give you something to do on a Monday evening,
It says a report, that's all it is.
It says the planning board must review the request and issue a report prior to the city council public hearing. And at the city council public hearing, you're gonna get up there and say, well, the planning board, approved this already and sent it to you for this next request. So this will get the ball rolling on the project. I think it's incumbent upon us to analyze the situation. And given the information we have right here, and don't roll your eyes. Given the information we have so far, I don't think we can, in fact, given the information I have, I don't think this is an appropriate project. I have serious concerns about what happens to the parking, what happens to the use of that soccer field, which is one of the best recreational fields we have in the city, used by thousands of kids all across the city, and the traffic issues around this site. We're abandoning a street that has residential housing on it now in favor of a drugstore, of which there's a couple, adjacent to this lot. It's one of the highest traffic areas in the city. There's some real concerns here, and I don't wish to, without any other information, without any notification to any residents, start that ball rolling.
Well, what if we had come in with a site plan approval and a subdivision without the abandonment? What would have happened? I mean, I'm only doing this because this is the procedure that was recommended to me by the planning department. Now, when we come back with all of these plans and the site plan and the subdivision, you can go into all the parking, and if you turn it down, then there's no abandonment. So that's all going to be handled in other public hearings. But this is just to get the ball rolling.
If I could, Mr. Flood, because I think you're in a position where you're defending the planning department, I guess I want to turn it to Aaron as to why was the recommendation put forth this way?
Because if you were to request the discontinuance of the street at a different part of this process. It's a situation where it's the city actually asking itself to discontinue a street on behalf of the applicant. This process that's set up gives the city an opportunity to discontinue the street and still protect the access to the park and protect and preserve the review process that's set up in the definitive subdivision, site plan review, special permit, and perhaps variance request. So that it was the applicant who, rightfully so, I believe, in this project, would be requesting to have the street discontinued because it's necessary for their project to move forward. And by doing it where you have the vote, where it's a conditional vote, you're preserving the ability to do the in-depth analysis and review of the project through all those processes that you have at your fingertips. By making a recommendation, however you word that recommendation to the city council, I think as Attorney Flood stated, it could be simply as this is the correct process that you feel. I'm just saying a possible language in that report is that this is the correct process to move forward, considering the fact that the planning board has the opportunity to review the definitive subdivision and site plan review with all the information that's necessary to make that decision, and that without those approvals, there is no discontinuance of the street. If that helps. I guess I'd probably open up a can of words trying to think, to describe the reason why the planning board would make a recommendation to the city council generally on the street discontinuance. It's a very different situation in this particular project because there is definitive subdivision approval, so that you're actually going to be looking at those specific concerns and how they plug into the more global concerns of the master plan or orderly development in the city. The discontinuance is a way to start that process, but it's not a tacit approval of the project itself, because that review is going to happen in the definitive subdivision site plan review as it's written into the vote.
I want to let you know, Steve, that they have been dealing with the planning department and with Jeff Gomes, the traffic engineer, to try to address all of these issues. So it's not that we're just coming in out of the blue, but I think this is the way to start. The city council is not approving an abandonment. They're putting conditions on it, subject to your approval. So nothing, if you turn it down, nothing's going to happen. But, I mean, without some sort of a vote from the city council, there's nothing that we can proceed on because the roadway is located right in the middle of our building. So.
Just for clarification, the city council already made a vote on this, and what was that vote for? I know they made a vote.
They vote to,
and it
to
was
take
8-1.
To take the offer of the $350 for the land.
Okay, so they agreed to sell city property
For this project.
for this project.
Yep.
So they've already made some sort of vote on this. Is
Yep.
that right? I'm aware of that. Okay.
So can't we send it to the city council for discontinuance with conditions?
Well, the conditions are in here now.
And I have no problem with what Joe has added in either, so I think that's what you would do.
Why can't we do that, just to?
Right, I mean, I think I share Mr. Gendron's concerns about this project in general. Knowing the site as we do and knowing the potential of the traffic issues, but we can't make that determination now. We need to see the traffic reports, we need to see the studies, we need to hear from the neighbors, et cetera. So I think that this is the step that has to be taken to bring that information before us, and bearing in mind that the discontinuance is not going to happen unless we approve it, unless the planning board approves it. So it's got to go through both boards. So I feel a level of comfort in that opportunity. So I wouldn't have a problem recommending this order of a conditional discontinuance and adding a little additional language, I think, just to tighten that up. My personal feeling.
I agree with that.
I know it's different than what we usually see. I mean, let's face it, I can't recall the last one I've seen of this.
But
It's
I
different.
think I think when it comes before you people for final approval, and if you do approve it, then that approves the abandonment and the new road, which is the intent of that statute. So I think it's all satisfied.
I
then.
understand what Steve says is, you know, you approve the abandonment of a road without having more information in front of us that we'd like to have. Like, what's the purpose of abandoning it? What are the concerns of traffic? And then the fact you say, well, we voted to abandon it, council's gonna say, well, the planning board already approved it, so they must be on board and going forward with this project. I mean, and then, as you and I both know, your neighbor's gonna say, oh, I see you guys started to approve Walgreens already. You know, that's gonna come out, no matter how we vote on this tonight, whoever listens to us, is gonna be more confused than we are.
Ask one.
You know what I mean? They're like, well, as Mr. Flood said, they approved the first step.
No, I said subject to condition.
I guarantee you'll be at the council meeting saying those
Isn't that
words.
the first step? Is that what I heard?
Subject to conditions.
The planning board got the ball rolling
Yes, one more
already.
thing. Is there any value in making it a joint public hearing with the planning board? I mean, I for one would like to hear, you know,
With the council?
yeah. I don't think we're.
No, I don't think they're gonna send it back to us. I mean, I guess the only main thing is, as Mr. Flood said, it comes back to us either way. I guess the main thing would be, I know Joe seems with the order of conditions, it comes back before us, it kind of covers us. I think the way Aaron was trying to say to it is, if we want to make a motion that's clear that upon recommendations from DPD, we've been informed that this is the procedural way to have the matter come back to us for more definitive plan.
Right.
Yeah,
Without an endorsement, you know what I'm saying? Without going out and
that was
saying,
the whole intent.
you know, and I guess the next question is, and if we vote no on this, it still goes to the council, then what happens? What happens if we didn't approve this this evening? I don't know.
I have no idea. This is the first time this is
Yeah, I mean,
been brought to
so
my
the question
attention.
is, I mean, usually you say, if we vote yes, this is the
You know-
consequences, we vote no, these are consequences. So you're like,
If,
and I
if
hate
we
to
vote,
actually-
if we vote no, then somebody's gonna have to figure out what happens next.
It's the
And-
same as a
I
rezoning
think
or a
we're-
zoning
we're-
amendment.
They can
It's a
still vote yes,
recommendation.
it's a recommendation.
it's
Right, so it's similar to a recommendation. I mean,
To a
like the
zone.
zoning amendment that was here earlier.
Right, okay.
We had no bearing on that, really. Oh, it's just a recommendation for the city council about how we felt, given our vast knowledge about zoning and planning in the city. And I look at this as the same way. Do we recommend that this street be abandoned?
But you have the final say on that, Steve, because it's not effective until you approve the
Right,
new
but it's
street.
still the first step.
I think the
And I look
distinction
at it
is
the
we're
same way.
not recommending the street be abandoned. We're recommending that if all of these things happen, then we recommend the street be abandoned. I think that's the distinction.
Yeah, that is.
And that's the
right.
procedure. Yeah, that's it.
That's right.
That being said,
That being said. Hold him in suspense.
You're good, Joe.
Should we continue to after the council meeting then? They'll send it back for the report.
Let Joe, he's got all the conditions.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we do report back to the city council that we feel that this is the proper format to move this matter forward, and that we recommend approval of this conditional order of discontinuance with a couple of modifications. And the modifications I'd suggest is that under number 1, that presently reads that the subdivision plan related to the Walgreens development project be approved by the Lowell Planning Board, be amended to read that the subdivision plan and site plan related to the Walgreens development project be approved by the Lowell Planning Board, and add perhaps a part B to that, number 1, that the special permit and any requested variance be approved by the Lowell Board of Appeals, and all the rest of the criteria that's in this.
Which is what, the bonding and the
Conditional
sign
order.
off by the city manager?
Yes.
Right, which is, and as a result of that, we say, and this is what's been informed to us by Planning Division of Development as the proper way to proceed on this matter?
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, any discussion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second, any further discussion? And we have a motion in favor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 No.
I'm sorry? Go ahead.
No, I vote no on that.
Mr. Fischett? No. Vote no? I vote yes, so the matter will come back to us once it goes before the council, so we get 3 in favor and 2 against.
Thank you.
Moving along under old business, we have none. Notices from abutting towns, and, let's see, we have no zoning board of appeal notices at this time. Any correspondence from Aaron from Division of Planning and Development?
Yes, at the beginning of the meeting, I handed out some packages to the board members. They're all the updated ethics regulations. There, on the last page, there is a test. Basically, all that last page is asking is whether or not you received the updated regulations or requirements. If you could sign them and have them back soon, if not tonight, in the next couple of days, we need to have those to the city clerk's office. The second part of that is is a requirement for all city employees, which planning board members are included under that heading, to go through an online test or workshop. That needs to be completed by April, I think it's April 1st. I'll clarify the date for you, but I will also email that link. But in the short term, actually just getting the updated regulations in hand is the most important part.
Okay, anything further, Aaron, to respond to? I have mine filled out, I'll give it to you before we leave this evening, instead of mailing it to you. We all have a copy of the summary of the conflict of influence law.
Yeah, that's it. And then I do have 2 notices from abutting towns. I didn't send it out in the packets, just I'd save you a little bit of clutter, but I did want to mention them to you. There's a withdrawal without prejudice for a project in Tewksbury, and a special permit for off-street parking in Chelmsford. So a decision was made for that. So if you want more information, I have that, but I can just in the file. That's it.
Yeah, I think you also emailed to us a permit, timeline on 133 Clark Road. That was just a report of what's gone on to this point. There's
Yeah, I
nothing
got a copy of
pending.
that.
That's correct. What's pending is the plan update, but,
Right,
but other than that, that was just informational at request.
On that, I did make a phone call to Attorney Flood. I did speak with the neighbor, Miss Nichols, on that. I've been informed by Mr. Flood that they are coming forward with a new plan. I believe the time we did the site plan visit, the plans from the original plan were off a bit, so Mr. Flood was getting a new set of plans, and he was going to submit those to us. I spoke with the neighbor and told her that once we have more definitive answers, we'll be speaking with her. And then whenever if we do a copy of the plans, we will let her see those plans, and I believe that the matter would be coming back to us one way or another in the future anyway. But that's just a timetable of what's taken place so far. Right. I think we also got a copy of what you got earlier today. I think we had some minutes in there. I know I got them late this afternoon, and I know I skipped over them before the public hearings. I don't know if the board members want to take a look at November 2nd minutes that we just got this afternoon, or they want a chance to digest those, and we can do them at the next meeting. I know there's a couple of things that have to be changed anyways. We had a rough draft this afternoon, so if we could just put on for next meeting if need be. I think that's good. Okay. Also, just at the last meeting, we did change the new meeting schedule. We were gonna vote on it, but we indicated we would make some changes and then vote on it. one of the things that we did correct was for December 6th of 2010, we put the meeting at the first Monday of the month instead of the last Monday of the month. So that had been a change that we spoke about since the last meeting. I knew we didn't incorporate except the new deadline. We wanted to make sure that all board members were present, had a chance to look it over. Does any of the board members have any comments on the new schedule for the 2010 meeting agendas?
That's fine.
Okay, so we can go with that. So we have that December one, the beginning of, so our next meeting is January 21st on a Thursday due to the Martin Luther King holiday. Then we have February 1st and the 18th. The 18th does fall during school vacation week. I might be available, I might not, depending on whether I go up skiing with my daughter or not, so. But I'll
Mr.
definitely let
Chairman.
the board know ahead of time.
Excuse me. I won't be available for the January 21st meeting. I'm
Okay.
traveling on business that week.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, okay,
I'll be gone for
thank
the
you.
whole week.
Okay. Okay. Any further comments or discussion from the board members? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
A motion to adjourn. We have adjourned. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Night.